always felt like I was a donkey in a sea of horses,
Mm.
and I was always just the odd kid out. And even when I had friends and circles to hang out with, I always felt different and weird, and my thinking was weird, and I was offbeat, and I always had this sense of like, oh, they're just bearing with me, they're just like, oh, okay, Alex, sure, yeah, okay, let's bring him along. And so I was never at least that's how well it felt like that to me. That they weren't too excited to have Alex as a plus one.
Alex, welcome. I'm so grateful to have you with me. What grabbed my attention about you is the word belong. And I've been chatting with a lot of individuals about belonging versus
Mm,
fitting in and what that means and what a big difference that is. So, before
mm.
we hit all of that, would you let the audience know a little bit about your background and how you even came to that word to be something that's meaningful to you?
Uh, yes. So since I was little, I struggled feeling like I belong. And I didn't even have the word then. I couldn't express it. It was just a feeling. The best way I can describe it is I always felt like I was a donkey in a sea of horses,
Mm.
and I was always just the odd kid out. And even when I had friends and circles to hang out with, I always felt different and weird, and my thinking was weird, and I was offbeat, and I always had this sense of like, oh, they're just bearing with me, they're just like, oh, okay, Alex, sure, yeah, okay, let's bring him along. And so I was never at least that's how well it felt like that to me. That they weren't too excited to have Alex as a plus one. And so since like so I was like 13, 12, I felt like that. And then about I'd say 8 years ago, I did the one word exercise. I worked through it, and once I was able to put the word behind it, it made sense. Like my whole life made sense. And then what I realized was, okay, I don't want others to feel that way. In fact, I've always known that, or felt that way. I run a dance school, but I want to be a marriage counselor at one point. I want to be a police officer, and anytime someone's struggling or suffering or feeling left out, I always jump into action. And I guess what me finding out my one word did for me was it helped me refine and sharpen and precise and surgically address the thing that I've always struggled with uh, in with more finesse. Yeah.
You know what came up for me, Alex?
Mm.
When you're talking about that feeling that you couldn't identify and couldn't put a word to it when you were younger, do
Mhm.
you recall why that came about? Was it from being bullied or what made you feel that way? Because I could see a lot of younger
Mm.
generation as well as some adults, honestly, that have that feeling that things are just not right for them, even though they might be amongst a lot of people, but they don't feel like they belong in a certain way. So, do you remember what brought that on?
It's a great question you're asking. I wasn't particularly. I wasn't bullied. Like I was sure I was picked on here and there. I had little moments. Did I have traumas? Yeah, but you know, mom worked three jobs. I was often left to my own devices. But is it my mom's fault? Right? Like, yeah, maybe. Like I think okay. So the way I approach it is everyone feels what I feel. Some people more than others. So what do you do with that? That's how I'm thinking about it, right? Like, is there a particular trauma? Like, if someone had a massive trauma, it's like, this is why I feel like an outsider. I think the danger with that is then you're putting your trauma or the event on this pedestal, and that in itself holds you back. Like, I'm not special in that I feel lonely, but it feels special. But when I'm in it and I feel lonely, it feels unique, right? It's like when I teach my students to dance, one guy's struggling. He's like, I'm not getting it. But I'm walking around seeing 10 other guys struggle. And I'm like, you're not special when you struggle. So when you're in it, it feels special. You feel special. It feels like it's just you. The thing is happening to you. But there isn't. And I mean, listen, like I could list all the different traumas and like family members struggling with addictions and all of this stuff. But I think my brain always worked different. I think, so I have ADHD, for example. So I think my brain automatically, and it's an entrepreneur gene and it's a gift, but I think it automatically is heightened to notice rejection and disapproval. And so, raised by a single mom in a new country as a refugee, I'm trying to find my identity, probably had a role in it. Me having my background Armenian, but being born in Uzbekistan and speaking Russian. And when I came to Canada, I remember I tried to go to the Armenian Community Center. And because I didn't speak Armenian, I was shunned. Like people were like, are you Armenian? Like I had an older gentleman say, show me your ID. Because he didn't believe I was Armenian and he wanted me to prove it by my last name. You can tell by my last name if someone's Armenian. So I had these moments and instances, right? But like some people go through those instances and it doesn't impact them the way that it did me. And so it's like nature, nurture. I don't have a clear answer. And I can keep listing like little moments, but it's like the way I think of it is there was nothing in particular, but all the little things and the stories I said about those things that created that reality. And so it's not the history, but it's the stories I created. Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. That's
that
perfect,
something.
Especially the stories, because it gives hope for the person that's listening that they're the creators of the stories that they're living or they think they're living. How did you narrow it down to belong? To get to that one word?
Yeah,
because I've gone through those exercises. Like, gosh, I love all of these.
Oh, so you're working out your one word, right?
I've got 5 words.
Okay, we can do it right now. Let's test it.
Go ahead, let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay. Okay. What are your? And you see something to write down on, or I have a computer. What are your 5 words?
Mine are kindness.
Okay.
Respect. Understanding. Understanding.
Sorry, kindness, respect.
Understanding. Love. And gratitude.
Okay, perfect. Gratitude.
And I wasn't able to narrow them down because I felt like they're like connected. They're super.
Yes, yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. Well, like, it's okay. Well, anyways, this is awesome. Okay. Do you have like a paper or something to write it on?
I do, Alex. Okay. I'm ready.
Now, I'm very visual. Okay. The way I want you to write it is I want you to write kindness and next to it respect. So I want you to write it in one line, so they're all on the same level.
Okay. Got it.
Got it? Okay, cool. They're all important. Like if you look at everything you've been through, the good and the bad and the ugly, there's a reason why you're drawn to all of these. And they're the gifts you give to others and often the things you don't give enough to yourself. They're the ways that you've dealt with trauma, and some of them have evolved in how they show up. If you look at the list, I want you to now, can you remember a time when you were little, 9, 10, 12, 11 years old, where it seemed really, really difficult?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so you can picture yourself there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you, before looking at this and coming back to this list, if you were to go back in time right now and see yourself, what are 3 things you would tell yourself? And you write it, say it as a sentence, but what are 3 things you would tell yourself that you wish someone told you?
at that moment,
Yeah.
that you're safe, that I'm safe, that
Mhm.
it's going to be more than fine, and I matter.
Okay. So now you look at this list. They're all important. What's the thing you needed most then of those words? What's the parent? So you look at your list now, you got your kindness, you got your respect, you got
Mhm.
your like what's the thing at its core that you actually needed then?
From my current list,
Yeah. To that little girl self.
understanding, to understand that I'm going to be fine, to let me know that I'm going to be fine.
Did you need understanding from others?
My own understanding instead
Okay.
of being in fear, to understand.
So how now, if you go back in time, how would you have helped yourself back then with understanding?
Um, Probably for an adult to have been there and hugged me and said, everything's going to be fine. You're going to be safe.
So now, understanding and safe, they're both important. Anything else from an adult you wish they gave you on that list that you have right now?
Um, Love,
Love, understanding, and love,
kindness for
understand,
sure.
and kindness.
Yeah.
Love, understanding, kindness. They're all important. Love, understanding, kindness. Which one seems a bit above? The thing you needed, the thing you starved for.
Love, love in that moment.
What's the would the world be a better place if there was more love?
Oh, for sure. If people understood what genuine love is.
Can you, when you walk into a room, can you quickly find the person who has the least amount of love for themselves?
Yes.
You just have a sixth sense for it
Yes.
because you know what it's like.
Hmm.
So, what do you think sits at the center of your heart?
Love and kindness, both.
And so, is there something that unifies them now? Think of love and kindness. Is there a unifier, or is kindness under love, or is love under kindness? Think of it as a tree. And you're not picking what's the best, you're picking the
Love,
thing. Hmm.
love.
And then under love is kindness, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So now that's one definition of love for you. What are two more definitions of love?
Um, Love is allowing other people to be themselves.
Mhm.
Love is not being judgmental, being
So
caring.
understanding,
Uh-huh.
understanding. Okay.
Yes.
So now look at this. Like the thing you give yourself least that you struggle with is love. No? Like if you think about it, well, this is the important part.
Uh-huh.
Like the thing you starve for, you've gotten better at. When you are at your lowest, you you give yourself fake versions of love. Like we all have that, like food, that toxic relationship, bad habit, snapping on someone, whatever. Like the little child crying, give me love, and then there's a way to like that the child will express it that isn't always the healthy way, but it is the way to at least deal with it.
Correct. Yes.
And like the movies you pick, the people you vibe with will be the people that give understanding, that create a space for saying be you. That's what belong is. So like you said multiple times, you said I had a bunch of people on belonging.
Uh-huh.
Well, another way to think about belonging is understanding and being
Yeah.
yourself and not fitting in
And I think that's
and
why I
kindness.
gravitated towards you when I heard that Stu was like, oh, Alex
Yeah.
has to be on the podcast.
So like first of all, thank you for allowing me in. And if you look at it, like at the top for you is love.
Yes.
What's bigger than love? We all want love.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that it's the thing that you don't give yourself the most, is it's like, hopefully now you give yourself a more authentic version of love than you did 2 years ago. But 5 years Rima from now will give herself more love as long as she continues to grow. So like, it's not, there's no top of the mountain for what you're struggling with, right? Like, you're just stronger to go up higher.
I agree. I agree fully, Alex. Definitely, as time has gone by, the more we define and refine ourselves, the easier it's become to look at a lot of things that have gone on through the years that I've made mean something that they didn't necessarily need to be that, and been able to work through them. And it's interesting you're saying all this, because what you're doing is I turn around and I'm teaching that in a different format, but the
Yeah.
same thing, so that people can arrive at their word, their way of being. So that's why
Yeah.
I asked you specifically, how did you
So we just
get
did it.
to
We
this?
walked it. You got the recording. This is amazing, right?
This is more than great.
It's like, and it's like, and the rule of thumb is always whatever. So how did I come to it? Like, I made my list. I was stuck. I had 3 different words. I don't
What
remember
were
the
they?
two
What
now.
were they?
I don't remember. I wish I kept the paper. But but now it's like, eh. But the biggest thing was, how did I get to it? So I was stuck, and I was like, you can't boil me down to one word. I'm too complex, and blah 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 blah. And then what happened was, there's this movie that I love since I was little, Hercules, Disney's Hercules, the animated one. And so every time I would watch it since I was little, this is like when I watched on VHS, DVD, and now streaming, I'd cry.
Hmm.
Particular song, too, I'd cry, and I never understood why. And so it's a song by Michael Bolton called "I Can Go the Distance." And the lyrics, right? So I was like, okay, like I was like, I'm stuck here. I need to put myself in an emotional state, because when you're thinking of your core one word, and for anyone who is watching that wants to figure this out, get the book Built to Serve. Like, it walks you through in a very kind of just a clear, simple way of doing it. But I was like, okay, I'm stuck. Let me listen to something that makes me cry. My thing was like, okay, it's an emotional decision. It's not a head decision. No matter how many lists you make, it's a head. It's a heart decision, not a head decision. So I put on the song and I'm like listening. I'm getting teary eyed. I'm like, oh my god, the emotion, right? And then literally, the second verse is, "I'll be there someday. I can go the distance. I will find my way if I can be strong. I know every mile will be worth my while. When I go the distance, I'll be right where I belong." I mean, I'm feeling it still. And when I saw that, I started bawling. The other words didn't matter, because I knew I kept trying to find that place where I belong. And when you're working through any of that, the one word, just going back to it, it's an exercise of the heart, and it's not always easy. So some people are here, some people are more here, right? Like, but when you can feel it, that's the thing. When you think it, don't rush and pause. And one of the easiest ways is to think about your childhood, like the thing you needed when you were a kid, whatever that thing is, from the adult you who is now, like, but then was just love. You just needed love, right? You needed, and love for you is defined in a very specific way versus love for me is defined. Because sometimes people are like, oh, but it's too general, or no, it's not. It's you. It's the thing you starve for. It's the thing you give most to others. It's your sixth sense. My sixth sense isn't love. My sixth sense is belong. I walk into a room and I know who feels like an outsider automatically, because I live it. So of course I'm going to see it. It's like, you're my tribe. Get over here.
I'm kind of laughing because I moved from Lebanon to the States when we were young. So I understand what you're saying about moving from one country to another and attempting to belong while your mindset is still in a different place. Physically, you've moved, but mentally, you haven't moved yet. How long did it take you, do you think, Aleks, really to begin to allow yourself to expand into your new life in Canada? It took me years, lots of years.
Well, how old were you when you came?
12.
Well, okay, yes, I was around that age. I was 9. I mean, I think one is the younger you are, the easier it is. I think one. I think two. Um, so in terms of like adapting to the culture, that didn't take long for me. Mostly because I just started watching TV. I started playing video games. Like in terms of the what do Canadians do? Right? Like I was young enough. I was grade 5, and I was fortunate. My teacher partnered me up with another kid who spoke Russian, and like we kind of grew in a neighborhood of kids, right? Like, I think that's part of it. Like the outsider part, like not feeling like I'm Armenian and being shunned by them when I was 13, like being in high school and sitting alone at the lunch table, like, like so much of that continued all of my life, even to this point, in some version of it. But in terms of like adapting to the culture, for anyone who's in a new country, the best way and the fastest way is consume what they're consuming. As long as it's not harming you emotionally, right? Like, don't do, drugs or whatever. For doing drugs, that's not what I'm saying. It's just like, it's not the lesson. But
No.
what I am saying is like, I watched a ton of TV. So I was able to speak English within, I don't know, like 6 months, I think, probably because I just kept watching TV. One is I love watching TV. I mean, that's entertainment for me. But two is I picked up English really quickly. I mean, it might not seem like it as I still fumble with words, but yeah. So that was a big help for me. Watching TV and playing video games with my friends and all of that helped me adapt. In that I I could have the conversations with the kids that they're having. It's like right now they're talking about TikTok or whatever, right? Like when you're not part of that world, it's just harder because there's a common dialogue, and now they're all speaking one language and you're speaking a different language, right? So there's a disconnect, and it heavily is influenced by the parents too. Like because my mom was away so much, I got to find a way that I could fit in with the groups, right? Like if my mom was like, like there's some families that they'll come and they'll like move you to a neighborhood where everybody speaks the language and everybody speaks that language. And so like, we have a big Persian community in the area. So it's like if you're Persian and like all your friends are Persian and they're all also immigrants, that kind of messes you up in the long run. So not that it's wrong, but it's like you don't get to adapt, right? So it's like you want to learn Greek or you want to learn Portuguese, go to the country and live where they all speak that, and you'll just pick it up. So
that was one of our challenges is we stuck close to our community, which took us longer to adjust and adapt.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Parents shouldn't do that, and I get it because it's you're moving to a country, but you want to keep the familiar. So I get but in the long run, it doesn't pay off. It makes it harder, and because as you get older, you really struggle more with a sense of dual identity, or not even dual. Sometimes it's 3, 4, triple identity. Anyway,
Aleks, what drew you to the dance company?
I was really insecure. I was insecure as a guy. I had 2 left feet. I felt uncomfortable in my body. Um, every time we go to a party, I couldn't dance with a girl because I couldn't even keep up with the rhythm, much less even just like hold a girl's hand comfortably. Like I was really, really, really just awkward and shy and introverted and basically I got really, really sick and tired of feeling like I don't get it. And so in my mind, I was like, well, someone just needs to teach it to me. I don't know how it came to be, but I was like, I just need to learn. Like someone has to teach it to me. Like the gap right now is I wasn't taught. So where can I go? So then I joined the dance school because I was like, okay, hopefully they'll teach it to me. And so that was like 13 years ago. 14? 14 years ago. Mm.
And how long did it take you to become an actual instructor?
So long. Ugh. I was so bad. When I was a student and I wanted to be a volunteer, not even an assistant, just like a volunteer. It's called we call it a helper in our school. Basically, someone who's done like level 4 or 5 out of 6 levels in salsa, and now they go to level 1 and they just like dance with the students and help them out the way they can. I was rejected. When I wanted to be an assistant, I was rejected. At the school, I run that. When I wanted to be an instructor, I was rejected. So like I was rejected a lot. But what I will okay, so I'll give a better. I want to give a better lesson for anyone who is dancing, because the way I run my school is very different than how it used to run and how most dance schools run their schools.
Great.
Nothing
That
wrong
was
with
going to
it.
be my next question.
Yeah,
Take
like
us through
the
it.
actual thing is like someone if you dream of being a teacher, dance teacher, your path isn't going to be my painful path. In fact, that's not how I run the school. So what I've learned is people come in for dance moves, but they come back for connection and fun. Always, always. And so the way I've approached it now is I just need, and so like my instructors have been my students, and they're not advanced. They're not performances. Like they didn't have to jump through all the like when I wanted to be an instructor, the requirement for me was I had to go perform, and I hated performance. I hated being on stage. I don't like that at all. I had to do the private lessons because they literally said to my face, "You're gonna teach classes, but you don't look like a dancer." And I was like 5 years dancing. I'm like, I don't look like a dancer after 5 years. Like what? Like really? But it's different now. So you could be a dance teacher after 8 months, like because the on the theme of belonging and serving, what we're doing is you just need to be further ahead than the person you're teaching. That's it. I know that seems silly, but that's it because a level 1 student who has 2 left feet will see a level 3 and go, "Wow, that's magic." So like my approach is no, you don't need to be a performer. You don't need to be the best dancer. You just need to look better than your students of that level you're teaching. Because, and this is true, it's like you can have the greatest dancer, but you never want to study with them because they don't make you feel good about yourself, right? And the easiest way to think about it is, we've all had 100 teachers in our life, instructors. How many of them do you remember? Maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And if you look at the 1 and 2 in terms of their knowledge, they weren't the most knowledgeable necessarily, right? But they cared. They gave love, what belonging, understanding, right? And they're usually not university. Sometimes they are in university, but even then, it's like, you don't have what's the guy? Oh my God, this is so embarrassing now. Black holes. What's his name? The guy who wrote the book on black. Oh my God. So I bet someone's watching this.
I don't know. So don't feel that because I don't know.
I'm literally Googling black holes professor. No, the Stephen Hawking. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
My face is actually red right now. This is
The
amazing.
theory of everything.
You don't need a Stephen Hawking to fall in love with the universe. Like this is important.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need a Stephen Hawking of dance to have a great time or fall in love with dance. Like my approach in my school, and this is true, is I can't teach someone to be a good person, but if they're a good person, I'll train you on how to be a good teacher. It's all just teachable skills, right? Like you just need to be better than the students. So anyone who wants to be a dance instructor, you need to find my school, but at some point I'll have 100 dance schools around the world. But more importantly is it's like you go to the school where you're studying and you say, hey, like I want to give back. I want to give back. And can I volunteer? Can I volunteer? Because like people will send me their resumes and their dance things and whatever, and I'll look through it. But for me, I always pick on vibe and energy. I'm like, would I want to work with this person? Because the dancing I'll teach. And so you could be 8 months. So actually, it's great. I have a dance teacher. She started a year. She started literally just dancing a year and 3 months ago, and now she's teaching my school at my school. It took her a year and 3 months. It took me 5 years. Now that's 5 years. I wasn't even a good teacher at that point, right? Like that took a lot longer, but whatever, right? Like what I'm saying is like what don't worry about how long it took me. Go with an open heart, go volunteer, go give back, go with the mentality of serving, say yes to every opportunity. Like those are an important part. Like I will reach out to my students sometimes and I'll be like, hey, do you want to fill in? And filling in means basically, let's say they're in level 3, I need an extra guy or girl, and I'll offer a class for free. And people who say yes, I'll keep an eye on them. And when they're filling in, I'm keeping an eye on them. They don't know. Well, now if they watch this, they'll know. But like it's all a test. It's all a test. And so when you're starting out, volunteer, go clean toilets, whatever, but like make yourself available, enthusiastic, instead of thinking, well, if I do 30 performances, they'll notice me. No. What people notice is someone who cares about the other person's mission. Like people who care about my school and what I'm trying to do, I will notice them. A lot of people assume that it's dance skills. It's not. It's not. Like unless it's like performances at a high level, but like to be a dance instructor, I think of it as kindergarten teacher. Because if you're a good, because this is important. If you have a group of 40 students in level 1, let's say, or beginner class, whatever, right? Like you have 40 students. But by the time you finish your course, you're down to 8, you're not a good teacher. No matter how great you dance. And so whatever your thing is of like, oh, well, if they just cared about technique, in my mind, I'd be like, no, they don't care about technique. People care about how they feel. It's like an art. It's like Van Gogh taking kids and forcing them to understand all the refinement of all the different colors and how they relate. Kids will quit. You want to inspire them to love the thing so that they can pursue it themselves. And inspiration doesn't come from it comes from growth. You do need to challenge and help them grow to see successes. Like we love to see progression. I'm getting really passionate right now about it because
I
it's a
love
whole
it.
like mentality. Like,
I
but
love
it's
it.
true. It's like
Aleks,
13 years of dancing.
How
Yeah,
much
go ahead.
of the personal development impacted the way that you're running your school and you teach that? So like if you had to align them.
100%. 100%. So what happened was, what dancing helped me solve was my insecurity with my body, my insecurity around women, my insecurity to show me that here's something I'm really bad at and I can get good at just through hard work. Like if you struggling with confidence, go do something difficult, go suck in it. And when you get better, you get confident. And when you get confident in something and you can see the effort in it, that confidence splashes into others because you need evidence that you're bad at something and effort can make a difference. And that could be any rock climbing. It doesn't matter, right? Like that's the thing. But what happened was in that point, like when I was 23, 24, 25, 26, and like I started dancing when I was 23. I also always felt lonely. And I also looked inside myself to find answers. And I looked for mentors and I asked questions because I struggled and I didn't understand why people don't like me or want me around. Why am I different? And it's so hard. It's so hard to ask yourself questions like, why am I so different? Because that's why people don't want me around. And the whole fitting in thing. And so I started to do a lot more inner work of personal development. And what I found was the dancing or whatever you pick that challenges you, going to a gym, whatever, like taking art class, whatever. But like you do the thing that that challenges you, and then you still have to look inside yourself and unpack that. And when you do both, then I think this is the important part. You start to get in harmony. with the outer world and how scary and difficult and challenging it is, and the inner world and the self-talk you have with yourself. Like, because I know a lot of people that will go to the next challenge, next challenge, next challenge, and yet they're still struggling with the same dramas. And I know a lot of people that do a lot of self-work but never take any action. And so you need both. And that's what I did in my dance school. So in my dance school, we have entertain, which is the first E. We have educate, which is the dance, and then evolve. And so like every class, I ask a question that people write the answer on their name tag. So they write Steve, and like this week's question is share one bad thing, share one negative thing that you saw the good in. I'm like, people will write like, I had cancer, blah, 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 blah. And so I have this question, and then we do the class. And I think the class, we do this huddle where we put our arms around each other. And for 4 minutes, I'll just share a moment where I struggled with that in my journey. And like people will cry in my classes. People will get out of toxic relationships because of that. Because what brings people back is connection at the core. And like, this is the thing that I'm really grateful for. Like the an AI will never be able to replace what I do, because the thing that we need most is human connection, and dance is the oldest form of human connection. And every culture, every single culture, there's not one single culture that there isn't some kind of dancing, that there isn't that tribe around a fire, and through dancing and laughter and talking, we all get the thing that we all starve for, which is belonging. Because we are literally in our DNA, we are conditioned to not be alone. In fact, one of the worst punishments you can do now, I mean, outside of torture, but is isolation. Is putting a prisoner in isolation. You go crazy. Right?
That's why COVID was so challenging for the entire world.
Yes,
Isolation
and
part.
it continues. It's still now, like
Yes.
mental health and all that. And that's why it's like dance is the cure for loneliness. But a lot of people stop because they think I'm not a dancer. And so I always talk in my class, I'm like, no. It's like, go spend time with positive people, go laugh, go mess up. And by the time you become a dancer, you won't even realize it. But this title of dancer, I have to be a certain way, because I had that. Like I would see, I'm like, oh, they're dancers, I'm not. And so like 18 to 23, I was like, well, they have something I don't. And at 23, I was like, F that. I just need someone to teach me. And I mean, I didn't realize how bad I struggled. So bad, but now here I am. I run Canada's largest salsa dance school. In all of my country, it's a large, and it's only one location. This is crazy. But it's like I have so many students, but they don't come back for the dance moves. They don't come back for the dance moves. Right?
So your company, honestly, Aleks, is a personal development school that happens to be teaching dancing at the same time.
I was thinking about that. Like, I'll give you an honest thing. It's my school is the cure for loneliness. That's what my school is. It's not personal development, because it's not like every second of the 1 hour class we're developing. Because, I've gone to those conferences, the Tony Robbins and whatever, and it's like 8 hours. You've had just a mental colonoscopy, so it's not that. It's like, no, we're laughing, we're high-fiving, and they just don't notice that I sprinkle little bits of, we're still human, we're still people. And it's like, there'll be these moments where I'll notice the energy in the classes. Everybody's just being hard on themselves. And then I'll be like, guys, hug your partner and say, I'm not as bad as I think I am. And so just hug, and people will laugh, and there's awkward hugs, and I'm like, hey, you did hug her. Right? Like, but they're laughing, they're having fun, but they don't realize that I'm curing loneliness. Versus where I think personal development has this, especially the way that it evolved, has this I'd say like, just this idea of, I don't know, it's like you work on yourself, but you don't do much. You're like, there's a lot of negative sides to it, where it's like growth can happen anywhere. if it's intentional. And so I'm intentional and I try to be surgical in that it's fun. They learn to dance and they evolve. Yeah, but because the reason I say this with you is because I struggled with this recently, like a year ago. I was like, are we a dance school first or personal development place? And I kept struggling with this duality. I was like, and then literally with this conversation, I just this is the answer that comes to me. My dance school is the cure for loneliness. Period. That's what it is. And every person will each take something away. Like some people will be like, yeah, I love the dancing. That's what I come for. Yeah, I love the stories. Like people will be like, there are times where I can't do the story because I have to have another class. Like I run late. I'm like, guys, I'm so sorry. There's no story today. And I have like people be like, Aleks, I want the story. Where's my story? Like literally people will be like, right? So like, but for each of them, I'm curing loneliness. Like I'm helping them deal with that.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That is very huge. I have interviewed someone who is a rock musician, but he really is about helping individuals that are thinking of committing suicide to stop them. And he's done an amazing job. So, you talking about loneliness, these are the things that we genuinely deal with throughout the world. You see incredible people that have been very successful, but they're lonely. I mean, and all of a sudden you hear that they've taken their lives away. So
Yeah, Robin
what you're
Williams,
doing,
right?
that's exactly who I was thinking of.
I
Thank
know
you
you
for
were thinking
channeling
about
his
I'm
name.
listen, of course. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Yeah.
Aleks, what would you like to see for your dance school long range? What would you love to see?
Well, okay, so I just picked this number. I don't know, it was like 8 months ago. It was like 100 dance schools. What I 100 dance school doesn't matter to me. It matters to me. It's just a number I picked. And I was taught really well that if you know where you're going to be in 5 years, you're thinking too small. I wouldn't have predicted COVID or everything that came from it. And that was only three, like, we're just still going through it, right? So right now, what I'm seeing is building another location because I'm not really too future thinking, like dreams and whatever. But if I think of a dream for myself, is become the type of Aleks who can carry more people on his shoulders so that they can help others. And I know I'm already doing that, but the idea of having a dance school in Japan and in Japanese, they're doing stories. Japan struggles with loneliness in some ways more than other places. Ukraine, Portugal, that makes me feel emotional. And that makes me smile. It makes me feel overwhelmed because I know that I'm not the type of person, like if you give me 80 dance schools right now, let's say, they're all gonna die. like I can't run it. Like, but it's true, right? Like I know my secret, but that's to say, if you say like, what's the bigger thing? I don't do too much forward thinking, but if I was, it's to be the type of person that can carry more people and inspire them to do the same. I think, I think, I think less people will, less people not only will struggle with loneliness, we're all going to still struggle with loneliness. I still struggle with loneliness, but they'll have the answer sooner that I didn't have. Because I think deep down, the thing that I really needed and why the stories are so important in my classes, and every instructor will do them, that is my school, is when you hear someone else in a vulnerable way say, here's what I'm going through, and you feel them, you automatically don't feel alone. And the thing when I was 13 and I struggled with these thoughts was I never shared those thoughts with others. And nobody around me shared those thoughts with me. And so I want to be the adult. And I would say this to my students, they're all adults, but I'm like, kids, Like I want to be the dad, the adult who says, what you're feeling is normal. And we're going to go through it. We're not going to quit. And it's going to be hard. And sometimes you have to pull back and it's okay. And like all those things is what I needed and what I want to continue to bring into the world. That's why I said yes to this, right? Like I said yes is because I want to bring this to the world. I want to cure loneliness, right? I want to cure loneliness. Is it going to get cured? No. But it's so big that it will always give me the next mountain to climb. It is the ultimate. And that's right. That's why I got the tattoo of belong on my wrist, because it's not something I can overcome. As in, there is no, I belong perfectly. No, there's always another level.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I belong all the time. It's because I'm not challenging myself. I've gotten comfortable. You know, big fish in a small pond, which is great because there's a lot of people I can help, but it also means there's a lot of people I'm not helping. And so, in service of others, I mean, what else is there? Yeah.
That's what it's all about. The service of others.
Yeah.
I know during COVID, you taught a lot of online classes. How did that work with the connection part? And I think honestly, this is my perspective, Aleks.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit before we hit record. I think the incredible technology that we have that allows us to connect. You're in Toronto, I'm in San Diego, but we are having this very valuable conversation. So you already taught these classes. Are they a possibility of reaching your vision and beginning to cure more loneliness?
Yeah. Okay. Well, so a pat on the back, like, because like my school is all about touching each other. Sounds weird, but
No, I know what you're talking
literally put
It's
that
salsa
now
dancing.
as the opening. No, but like put that as my school is all about touching. Now hear from Aleks. It's gonna be amazing. That's a hook. You gotta have this hook now. But basically the government said people can't be in contact with each other. My whole business is that. I don't even have it's not even a hip hop school. Like with the hip hop school, at least there is some easier way to, not, they all struggle with it too. I'm not saying that, right? And there's always someone worse or whatever. But when we finish this dialogue, you and I, this discussion, your cup is going to be full and so is mine.
Yes.
A video or not. Now, at the same time, it's like being around other people's energy is important. Like physically I'm not saying it's a substitute, but what I think is we've all also been there where we can spend time with a lot of people but feel lonely and isolated. So what's important is that connections aren't transactions. Because when connections are transactions, you don't remember it. It's like eating junk food. And I've done it a lot where you spend time with your family or your friends and you go home and you're like, man, why am I so lonely? And then what I've come to terms with, because I struggled with this so much, was I wasn't having meaningful conversations with people. I wasn't opening up. I wasn't sharing. And the reason I wasn't was because everyone else wasn't. So if everyone else isn't, why is it up to me? It's hard. It's scary because you could be rejected, right? Again, it's like weird little Aleks. In fact, when I took over the dance school, and this all relates to the virtual thing, but when I took over the dance school, within the first 3 months, I had hundreds of people who want to dance with me, spend time with me, were talking to me, but I'd walk home and I'd feel lonely. I'd feel so lonely. More lonely running a dance school with over 60 volunteers, 12 instructors, thousands of students, hundreds that love me, whatever. But all of that, and I'd be walking, and I remember this one time I'm walking down, I'm like looking over the window, I remember the little path, and I felt like there was this hole in me. You know how a bathtub has a hole drainage, and then you have the plug? It's like someone popped the plug out of my chest. And I stopped, and I started sobbing, and I couldn't understand it. I started to sweat, I started to sob, and I felt alone, and I felt like I'm in this hole. and there's a hole in me, and I couldn't understand it. Like, it makes no sense because my environment has people in it. And I remember I messaged my mentor and I said all this, I understand. And he said, yeah, you're having junk food conversations. And of course, I got defensive. I'm like, no, I'm not. And this is true. So I said, okay, you know what? I said, but nobody does it. Nobody has real conversations. And he says, if you want the things that nobody has, you have to do the things that nobody's doing. So then I said, F you. I never said that. I thought that because I'm being a brat. And so what I did was the very next week, we had a party at our school, and I'm standing outside. I'm getting anxious because I'm like, the first person who talks to me, good luck to them because we're going to go deep, like automatically. And so this guy comes up to me. He's like, hey, how's it going, Alex? I'm good, yeah. And then I was like, and I said to him, I said, hey, so what is it you do? And he's like, oh, I'm a dentist or something like that. I was like, oh, cool. And in my mind, I'm like, go deeper. So I was like, okay, did you always want to be a dentist? He's like, it's fine. And I was like, oh, like, you're not giving me anything to work with. But when you were a kid, what did you want to be? And he was like, accountant or something. I don't know. I was like, oh my God, yes, we're going deeper. Why didn't you become an accountant? It's like, it was hard. I was like, you know, because it's like, anyway, so 5 minutes, it looks like I'm waterboarding him. Like I'm interrogating this guy, KGB style. And I'm noticing he's fidgeting a lot and looking uncomfortable, but I'm so like honed in, like this is a mission. I'm gonna try this. Then he goes like, hey, Alex, listen, I need to go to the washroom. So he walks away. I grab him on the shoulders. It's true. I grab him on the shoulder. I'm like, oh, perfect. We can keep talking. Let's walk together. He turns around, puts his hand on my chest. He said, no, you stay. I'm gonna go. So I messaged my mentor and I was like, oh, it's not working. And then he replies, you're just bad.
Wait, say that again. I didn't hear that last part.
So I said, it's not working. And he said to me, my mentor said, you're just bad at it. You're bad at having real meaningful conversations on understanding and listening to people and all those things. And so how does that relate to virtual classes? So I struggled with virtual classes because I knew that people dancing online won't give them the thing that my school gives them. Like, how can I have online classes that cure loneliness through dance? That was the thing that I struggled with. So I couldn't figure it out. And then after brainstorming, I found out that Zoom has breakout rooms. So I was like, oh my God, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a group of 50 students. We're going to split them into 25. Each of them will teach them choreography that mirrors. So, you know, like you'll do the same thing, but mirror me. So on Zoom, it matches. And we'll do breakout rooms where we partner people in twos during the lesson where they'll dance. But, and then I said this, in the last breakout, for 4 minutes, they'll talk to each other and answer the question that I asked them at the end of the classes. And this helped a lot of people get through COVID. So it's possible. As long as our conversations aren't transactional, but it's very easy to be transactional because it's scary to be seen. You know, so again, it goes back to, it's like, I want to be the example. I want to be the example that vulnerability, that openness are needed. They're needed. We need that, and we all starve for it. So I will be the example. And everybody knows this. Like, if you talk to me, like, there's no way we're not going to go deep. And it's not like I'm intentionally doing it. Before I was, like, if you look at the guy with the bathroom that ran away, like, I was intentionally doing it. But now it's just how I function. But it's the same with dance. It's like when you start to dance, you're like, you're freezing up, you're struggling, right? But then at some point, you're just dancing. And so whatever people are like watching and they're like, maybe they see me, it's like, Alex, you're so like off the cuff, you're so good at this. It always worked. Every single part is work. More important is wherever you're starting, just go. Start your dance classes, start your meaningful conversations. You know, I've had so many conversations with students and be like, oh, but my parents don't talk like that and they won't understand me. And I'm like, okay, but now what? Now what? I'm like, but now what? You're just stating the reality, but what kind of reality do you want to live in? Well, you know, but they're going to be uncomfortable with this. Yeah, so what? So what? change yourself and other people's viewpoint will catch up. And sometimes it'll take years. But that doesn't matter. Because whoever's watching this, you can be the example of authenticity. But sitting and saying, other people aren't authentic and that's why the world is in ruins is a cop out. I get it. I'm not pushing you down because of it. But it's a cop out. Because nothing then changes. So you change your immediate environment. See, like when people walk into my school, I'm changing that environment. I have control for that 1 hour once a week.
I'm hearing you so well. I remember when I first started teaching my classes to get them to connect. The very first class, I allowed them to just like absorb and take a deep breath and allow them to like show up. And I would say by the second to the third class, their guards came down and now they can see that they can share. Their struggles are no different than someone else. It might be a different topic, but the feelings that go along with it are about the same. And the more that they can open up, just like you're saying, and authentically have those conversations, you could see them by the end of the class, how tight they are and how much they show up better. And it changes their atmosphere around them. So I'm thanking you on behalf of everyone that you touch through your school to open up those real conversations that we struggle with throughout the world, not just here, everywhere we struggle with them. Aleks, what's the best way for people to connect with you, to reach you? I have a few more questions, but give them how can they reach you?
The best way is through Instagram. That's where I'm most active right now. So Toronto Dance Salsa, which is the name of my school. So look that up. Toronto. I know in our city we say Toronto. We don't say the T, but it's Toronto. Toronto. So you could probably just put that in the description. But Toronto Dance Salsa. Through the website torontodancesalsa.ca. I'm also on TikTok, Toronto Dance Salsa, and Twitter, Toronto Dance Salsa. I'm not the most active there, I'll be honest. But Instagram right now is where they can reach me. So if you're like living in Toronto, in our city, and you're like watching, it's like, oh my gosh, I want to be a dance instructor. Reach out to me. Actually, we have a whole section of like we're hiring, and it tells you exactly what you need to do. But what are the other couple questions you have for me?
One question I have for you: it's not a question. If I sat you in front of a group of 20-year-olds, what would you say to them?
You belong anywhere you go as long as you don't betray yourself or what you stand for.
And if I switch the age group to the 30s to 40s, would that change?
Same message. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. It's hard. It's hard. But it's necessary. That's the core of belonging. That's how I define belonging. Because like you said, the opposite is fitting in. Fitting in is asking yourself, requiring yourself to be someone else in order to get the love that you deep down want.
Aleks, is there anything that you'd like to say that I didn't ask you? So we don't get off of this and you go, oh, I wish Rima had asked that.
Totally random. My half-sister's name is Rima.
Well, there you go.
So it ended on that. That's great. I was like, oh my gosh, it is. And so this whole thing I forgot. I just remembered it again. So there you go. We're not related, but we're related in our mission.
That's fantastic. Aleks, thank you. And to our audience, please remember your attitude always determines your altitude. Please follow Aleks, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.